Joining us right now is Mike Renner with CBS Sports NFL Draft analyst. Hey, Mike.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
Yeah, talking about, I think you retweeted it, but just this montage of touchdown passes. I think Ian Hartitz posted it, of Jaguars receivers dropping balls in the end zone. And that's why, you guys do what you do, where you look at every throw, because if these guys catch the balls, it's a totally different story on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, he doesn't have the best team core. They paid a lot of money. If you go look at the cap hits for some of these guys, whether it's Gabe Davis, whether it's Christian Kirk, to just not be that good, frankly, it's unfortunate. So Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a star, but he also had a drop in that game. So Trevor, the past 2 weeks, he's been fine, especially 2 weeks ago. He was actually awesome. But I do think the talent around him this year is just, it ain't enough, and it's not like they're doing enough to, scheme a ton of guys open in that offense either.
Mike, give us your thoughts on Jayden Daniels' body of work through 6 games. I see you tweeted on October 6th at Mike Renner. Jayden Daniels might already be the best go ball thrower in the NFL. He's been uber impressive early in his career.
Through 6 games. So I've been doing this since, 2015 NFL draft analysis in terms of projected rookies to the NFL. There's not been a better rookie through 6 games. There just hasn't. What he's doing at the NFL level right now is beyond, I think, anyone's wildest dreams. You just don't expect a quarterback to look the way he has. And it's just the poise. Even this past week, I think the first week they really took away the run game. Pretty much every single week they had that to lean on, and they were so successful in that regard. And he's obviously a big part of that. But they took away the run game, and everyone thought, or at least I thought, what's he going to look like when that's the case? Because, a lot of great quarterbacks, they do it all on their own. They were able to do it all on their own. And Jayden, I thought, when they were down 2 scores, he was still battling. When everyone knew he was going to pass, and when he was under quick pressure, he was still making the right read, decisive, getting the ball where it needed to go. Sometimes guys weren't getting open the way he needed them to. So, man, yeah, like I said, hard to be more impressed with what he's done through 6 games in his career.
And piggybacking on that, Mike, Kliff Kingsbury, as the offensive coordinator, you tweeted he obviously was taking notes at USC. Even some of these wide receiver screens, he had a flea flicker to then throw a screen pass. He's been very creative.
Yes, he really looks like he's turned a page in his career from the guy we saw at Arizona. Now, I will say it's still early on. We'll see how this progresses, because if Kliff was known for anything, it was kind of the end of the Arizona. He had some hot starts. Kyler was MVP front runner week 10 at one point, and then the wheels fall off. People started to catch on to what they were doing. He didn't have that sort of second act to his play calling. So we'll see if that's changed. But man, even just early on, a lot different from the guy we saw in there. It's just perfectly tailored to Jayden Daniels. I mentioned him being the best go ball thrower. And it's this offense really lulls teams into sleep by peppering them underneath. Just peppering the quick passing RPO game, those screens you mentioned. Then once your eyes as a defender start to be I need to get in on those, I need to come up and make plays on those, but you perfectly timed go balls over the top, deep shots that Jayden's just good at, that they just really, it's a perfect marriage at this point in their careers.
Is it sustainable, though? And here's the thing. I agree. I think he's blown me away. I think he could do it all. The only question is, can that frame stay healthy? I think I've seen. Who knows? Maybe he'll come back to earth, but he sure looks like the real deal. Makes the progressions, makes all the throws. But, prior to the season, we said the offensive line wasn't good enough. Maybe they're playing a little over their heads a little bit. We said the receivers weren't good enough. Maybe our team's going to catch on. Are they going to continue to score 30 points a game?
I don't see why not, honestly. I'll just say
I love that.
I think the way they play is sustainable, because it's not predicated on the offensive line's good enough. It's not predicated really on the offensive line. It's predicated on the running game,
right,
which is so, when you have Jayden Daniels at quarterback, is so different for your offensive line. It basically puts defenders in this constant bind of not knowing where the ball is actually going to go. Is it going to get handed off? Is Jayden going to keep it? They can't commit fully to one way or the other, and that just makes your life so much easier as no lineman. And then when you can consistently do that and just consistently play that brand of football, you don't get into the third longs, right? That really get your quarterback killed. You don't get into those obvious passing situations that are really going to probably expose a few of those guys up front. But then there's also guys up front that I think are playing darn good football. Like Sam Cosme's, playing at borderline Pro Bowl level at guard. Like I think they've had guys play them much better even when they are asked to do the difficult things along the offensive line than anyone expected. So it's, like I said, no real reason to point to where I think someone's going to take a big step back and we're going to see this offense go into the toilet.
All right, Mike, we want to ask you about the trades from yesterday, so we'll get to that. But real quick, last Commander's question, from me anyway. Do you think, we were talking about this early in the show a couple segments ago, do you think that the Commanders should go out and, offensively that it doesn't look like they need help? Correct. All right. So, but before the deadline, do you think the Commanders should go out and get some defensive help, whether it's a corner or it's an edge rusher? We threw out names like Hassan Reddick and Zadarius Smith and guys who are, older and maybe on a final year of a contract. Do you think they should go out and get some help before the deadline's over to help them possibly win a division?
I struggle with that thought process of trying to add, just because football is so much different than like baseball, where that's obviously commonplace of adding that guy. Trying to fit that guy into your scheme right away, I think you just want to be more of a homegrown team, especially with the energy in that roster and in that locker room right now. I'm not sure you want to go messing it up by adding, especially if he's like Hassan Reddick and like what he's done over the course of this, not even showing up to the facilities sort of thing that he's doing in New York. So I would take a more long-term approach, because usually anytime they can trade at the deadline, it's kind of like this short-term play.
Mm-hmm.
You have a great window that's opening up. No rookie's ever won a Super Bowl. So I think you're still playing for next year, year 3, year 4 of his rookie contract, where he's still very cheap, where you still have this kind of budding roster. And that's kind of what they did in the draft, right? They took so many swings of the bat. They had so many picks this year that they just wanted to reload this roster. I think you keep that mentality, and I don't think trading for one guy is what's going to put you over the edge this year.
Okay. All right. Some big names get traded yesterday. Give us your thoughts, first of all, on Davante going to New York.
I thought it was 2 weeks overdue, man. If they would have had him before the Broncos game, they might have won 3 straight instead of lost 3 straight. So to me, if they were going to do it, I can't believe it took them this long to do it. I don't think it's too little too late. I still think that puts them into the playoff picture. This defense has been good enough to make the playoffs. They're definitely missing the wide receiver too. So this puts them in a wild card, but they could have won the division, and they could have been in a position to have home playoff games. And, now with Aaron Rodgers at his age, trying to go on the road for 3 straight games and then make a Super Bowl, I'd be hard-pressed to see that being the case. So I think it's a little too late, but it does make them a playoff contender at minimum.
Hey, Mike, I thought it was bad for Cleveland already, sitting at 1-5, not scoring 20 points in a single game this season. Now they deal Amari Cooper to the Bills, and their next 3, now they're all at home, but they're against Cincinnati, Baltimore, and the Chargers. Like, I don't see a win in any of those 3 games, especially without one of their top offensive weapons now, having Josh Allen throwing him the ball instead of Deshaun Watson, who's been historically terrible.
Yeah, what a win for Amari Cooper, man.
Yeah.
I can't
Life
be
win
happier
for him.
for that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo and Cleveland are probably like equal-ish sort of cities in terms of quality of life, but Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen is a massive upgrade, and I do think for the Bills, that's what they're missing. Teams are playing man coverage against them and just not worried about any of those guys winning one-on-one on the outside. This at least gives them a little juice. From the Browns' perspective, though, yeah, it's over. Unfortunately, it's over not just this year. It's over for the next 2 to 3 years. You have this contract on the books with Deshaun Watson that just puts you in a unwinnable position from a team-building perspective. And if this roster wasn't good enough, because this was kind of their all-in roster. Remember, they traded for Jerry Jeudy this offseason. They made plays for this year thinking this could be the year. If he's going to look like this with that roster, it ain't going to happen. So they're going to have to do a massive reset, and I think this is only the first domino to fall here.
When you watch Deshaun, what is it about him that has become so bad? Is he just slower with his decisions? Is he not as athletic? Is he not as accurate? What's happened to his game?
I just don't think he cares as much. I think the whole, all the sexual assault allegations have basically put him in a mental spot where he's not the guy anymore. He was the man his entire life from Clemson to the NFL, had a confidence to him that was, uncoachable. That's just gone. He can't be because he's like a pariah anywhere he goes. No one looks at him as a star. Everyone looks at him as the guy to avoid. So I think that's the biggest thing. But then I think the shoulder, whatever, he's missing more throws than he's ever missed. You know, it kind of all goes hand in hand. But if he is hampering a consistent shoulder injury, it looks like that on tape.
Hey, Mike, there's some big games this week. Just kind of get your thoughts on a few of the matchups. Seattle's in Atlanta, right? The Texans are in Green Bay. Combined record there is 9-3. Lions, Vikings, massive, right? Chiefs, Niners, massive. I mean, there's some Ravens, Bucks on Monday. I mean, this slate for Week 7 is a big one. There's 5 or 6 really good matchups.
Oh, a massive turnaround from last week when it was literally just Commanders, Ravens, right? Like I think no other game. I mean, Lions, Cowboys is Bills, right? It got hyped, but it didn't show up on the football field. So I think a lot of good, like, kind of teams jockeying for where do they stand atop their respective conferences. I think we're going to see that with the Packers at Texans. I think they're both kind of in the same level, whether it's the NFC or the AFC. They're kind of like that third or fourth team in their respective conferences. Which one, comes out on top there. And I also really like that Falcons-Seahawks matchup because they're kind of both, the Falcons are atop the division, but I think they're both going to be in that wild card mix when it's all said and done, and both desperately need to keep themselves above 500, especially from the Seahawks perspective. They can't be dropping multiple games in a row the way they have. So I do think it's a much, much better week of football this weekend than we saw last weekend.